She arrived to us at 6:25 p.m.
And do you recall her condition when she arrived?
Yes, she was brought in by EMS. She was cold, very pale, cyanotic around the mouth. She also had various bruising all over her body as well. At that point in time, she did not have, she was in a cardiac rhythm called asystole, which means she had no pulse rate or cardiac activity at that time.
All right, so let's unpack a little bit of that. You said that she was cold. What does that tell you as a nurse working in the emergency department?
There's not a lot of circulation going on the patient.
Okay. You also said a term cyanotic. What does that mean?
It's blue in color, and it was more so around her mouth area.
And you said that you noticed various bruising?
Yes, sir.
And where did you notice that bruising?
It was on her back, kind of her lower abdomen, and I think on her thighs as well.
Okay. And was that readily apparent to you?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Bohannon, you've worked in the emergency department for about 9 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
From resuscitative methods, had you ever seen bruising like that?
No, sir.
And I'll say on a pediatric patient.
Never.
How about on any patient that you've seen?
I've never seen bruising from resuscitative efforts in my career.
Now, what was done in the emergency department?
We took over CPR from the paramedics when they brought her in. We evaluate the heart rhythm, which I said she was in asystole, which means she had no cardiac activity on the heart monitor at that time, so we continued CPR. And continued breathing for her through the ET tube that was in place by the paramedics.
So I want to show you some photographs now that my screen is up and running. I'm going to show you what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 3. Is this consistent with the way that you observed Layla when she arrived in the emergency department?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you the State's Exhibit 67. Is this consistent with what you observed when Layla arrived in the emergency department?
Yes.
And you said, let's back up, have you ever seen any kind of bruising like that from resuscitative methods?
No, never.
You said you've never seen anything close to that?
No.
Just show you State's Exhibit 52. Is this consistent with what you observed when you saw her in the emergency department?
Yes.
And I'm showing you State's Exhibit 54. Is this consistent with what you observed in the emergency department?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you notice anything about her extremities?
Yes. One of her arms had a deformity, which means it's usually indicative of a break of a bone.
Okay. And if I'm showing you State's Exhibit 34, is this what you meant by deformity?
Yes.
And if there's a pointer right next to you, it's on the ledge right there.
Oh.
If you could just kind of point to the area where you see a deformity.
This area here, you just kind of see where it's kind of bowed out a little bit.
Now, Ms. Bohannon, did you indicate anything about this in the medical record?
I did not. We did get an X-ray
Okay. So
because we noticed it.
So you got X-rays once you noticed it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how long did the ER staff work on Laila Daniel?
I'm going to refer to the record here. She arrived to us at 18:25, and we called resuscitative efforts stopped at 18:29.
So, 4 minutes?
Yes, sir.
And what happens after she was pronounced dead?
So that's when I proceed we have to call the coroner for every death in the emergency department. The coroner on call that day was Donald Cleveland, so we notified him. I also closed the room off and had a police officer stay outside the room, so no one could go in and out of the room. We also notified LifeLink, and then eventually when family members, or in this case she was a DFACS child, so you have to notify DFACS, and we also notify police as well.
You said LifeLink. What is LifeLink?
So LifeLink is an organ donation, and the state of Georgia are required to notify them for every death.
Are you familiar with the term death notification?
Yes, sir.
And what is that term?
So that's the process in which you tell the family member that the patient has died.
As a charge nurse, does that duty often fall to you?
Yes.
And did you make a death notification in this particular case?
Yes. The first person that we spoke to in this case would be Samantha White, was the DFACS caseworker. She arrived there first, so we discussed it. Me and Dr. Evans with her discussed that process and let her know that Layla had died.
And then what did you do after you discussed that with Miss White?
After that, I have to go back. Well, I'm also responsible for running the entire department, so there's a lot of stuff going on in that emergency room. It's very busy. So after that, I went back and we talked with the caseworkers. I talked with Donald Cleveland. I can't remember if it was DFACS or PD, asked us to also see the sister. They were going to be bringing her in as well. So I notified the minor care staff, which is the minor emergency area. I spoke with the PA and the nurses over there. I don't recall at this time who those specific individuals were, but I let them know that she would be coming in, and as soon as she got here, we would have them do a full physical assessment on them.
Okay. Did you ever do a death notification with Layla's foster parents?
Yes. When they arrived a little bit later.
And where is a death notification normally handled?
We have what's called a quiet room, so it's a room that is kind of blocked off from the public. It's a quiet area where you can let the family members know what happened.
How often, as a charge nurse, do you have to do something like this?
Very frequently.
When you made the death notification to the foster parents, who were those individuals?
It was Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum.
And can you tell us, I guess, how you first entered the room? What you observed when you first entered the room?
When I first entered the room, as I walked into the door, there's a couch to the left. Jennifer was sitting on me facing them. She was on the left-hand side of the couch. And I remember her just kind of being kind of hunched over, kind of relaxed on her elbows, kind of holding her face up. I remember her not crying at all. Joseph was sitting it'd be her left, and he was sitting relaxed on the couch, kind of like this, propped up on the couch.
And you did something with your arm, just for the record. Can you kind of describe what you did with your arm?
It was kind of relaxed on the top of the couch.
And when you walked in, what happened after you first walked in?
Donald Cleveland was with me to do the death notification in this case. So at that point, we proceeded to tell them that Layla had died.
Now, prior to that, did they ask you any questions?
No. In my experience, when you typically walk into a case like that, the family member they immediately want to know what happened. They want to see the child. They want to know what's going on. And like I said, when I first went in, they were kind of quiet and didn't really ask a lot of questions at that point in time. Now,
when you notified them that Layla had passed away, what was the response that you observed?
Joseph didn't really show a whole lot of emotion. He just kind of kept sitting there. I remember Jennifer was sitting there and she started rubbing her eyes. There wasn't any tears coming out at that point in time. She just kept saying, "I can't cry anymore, I can't cry anymore."
Did this interaction seem out of the ordinary to you?
Yes.
And why is that?
In my experience, when you notify family members or, anybody involved with a child especially, family members are typically, they're beside themselves, they're sobbing, they're crying, they can be angry at times, like they're just distraught. So that wasn't a typical reaction that I've seen.
To be fair, you would acknowledge that people do react differently, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did either of them say anything else to you while you were in the room?
It was kind of quiet at first, and then I asked if they had any questions, and then Jennifer proceeded to say that the child had been choking on chicken, and she tried to do the Heimlich maneuver.
Was there anything else that was said while you were in the room?
Not that I recall.
And did you stay in the room very long?
Not long, just a few minutes. It was a very busy time in the ER, and it was about to be shift change as well. So I had to get ready to get the next shift onboarded to come into work as well.
And you also mentioned that Millie was going to be checked too, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any part in actually checking Millie?
I did not. The only really interaction is when they brought her in, we walked her over to the room that she would be evaluated in.
So did you ever see or observe Millie yourself?
No, I did not.
Nothing further at this time.
Ms. Mull.
Did you give a statement to police about the way Joseph and Jennifer were sitting?
No, I did not.
And in fact, you don't know whether they had been told about the death before or not.
No, ma'am, I did not.
And you do not know whether they were in shock or not.
No, ma'am.
So they could very well have been in shock and not showing the kind of emotion you described.
It's possible.
You got the child with a towel, a shirt. What came with the child?
Usually they're typically exposed, which means they don't really have any clothing or anything on them.
But did they come off of the gurney with a towel or a shirt?
I do not recall that.
Thank you.
Nothing further. All right. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down, and you're excused unless there's an objection. And the state is no objection to her being excused, correct?
That's correct.
The state calls next witness.
State calls Dr. Charles Evans.